It's been like a month. Who's surprised? Not me. What's up, y'all? It's Saraciea, aka Chris, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here, because you might be, because I haven't posted in like 2 months. Sorry. I said I was gonna aim for consistency. It was your fault for believing me. So by the title, you could see that we're doing the mid-year freakout tag. And like, I get it, mid-year, it's August. Am I a little bit late to the trend? Absolutely. But do I still qualify for it to be considered mid-year? I would actually argue that mid-year is anywhere between like May and August. So I haven't missed a cutoff yet. Don't come at me. Before I jump into the questions, I'm actually gonna do a little bit of my reading review, kind of seeing where I am with my goals, give y'all some stats on how my reading's been this year in general. You'll see like pie charts and shit popping up on the sides, so look forward to that if you're into graphs. They were fun to make. Yeah, let's jump right into it. So how many books have I read this year? Thus far, I have read 81 books. My goal for the year is 100, and I think I'm still going to be able to reach that. I've read a lot of graphic novels and manga this year, so I've read a total of 28. How many pages have I read? It's only counting the completed books, so thus far I've read 20,211 pages of completed books. I'm currently reading like 5 others, so that number is not super accurate. This one I'm really proud of. So I've stopped buying books for the most part. There's some exceptions, but I've changed it to that if I'm gonna buy a book, it's a book that I've already read and I've really enjoyed, so I'm comfortable buying it, or a book that I'm feeling confident that I'm gonna like. So I think this year I've probably bought 3 books before reading them, and I've already read 2. That is Olga Dies Dreaming and You Sound Like a White Girl. I gave those both 5 stars. And then I bought Eliza and Her Monsters, which I plan on reading later on this year. I'm going to talk about this, so spoiler alert. Based off of what it's about and what I've seen, it sounds like it's a book that I'm gonna like. All that information to say, yes, I have bought books this year, but if I read them from the library first, I'm not counting this as money saved. This is just books based on the first read through. Books that I read through the library or NetGalley or from like book tours or books that I'm gifted, that kind of falls into this. And I use the price it would have cost me if I had read it in the format that I read the book, if that makes sense. So if it was like an ebook, I took the ebook price. If it was paperback versus hardcover, I took that price. So in total this year, I have saved a total of $1,195.70. I'm shocked, but I am so happy. I also mentioned that I've been reading a lot of graphic novels and manga. Manga is expensive as fuck. So for the few that I read from like Shonen Jump, that app charges me like $1.99 a month, which is significantly less than the $9 I would have spent on an individual volume for a 20 volume manga. So if you're into manga and it's shonen, I would recommend looking into that app. Anywho, so I just talked about the fact that I read books in multiple different formats and I've gotten them from different places. This next chart is gonna be books from the source. So of the 81 books I've read, this number is also not accurate. Like for some reason on the Excel, like this is a very quick screen grab of what the Excel looks like. Some numbers weren't coming up. I don't care that much to try to figure out why. Of the 80 books that I've read this year, 49 of them were from the library. 3 of them were previously owned, like I had bought them prior to this year, or I acquired them prior to this year. 10 were from NetGalley, 2 were from Book Sirens, 9 were from this company that I used to do book tours with, 5 I read through Shonen Jump, and then 2 I mentioned I bought and 1 was gifted. So here are the percentage breakdowns. 61% of them were library books, which I'm not surprised by. So the next segment of information is going to be about the author specifically. So here is the information about authors based on gender. Of the 81 books, 12 or about 15% were written by men. 53 of the books, or about 65%, were written by women. And then 9 of the books, or about 11%, were written by non-binary individuals. You will see that it says 7 books, or about 9%, is unknown. I did some research to try to figure out what the author's gender identities were because I didn't want to misgender them and I couldn't find any of the information. So I just left it as unknown. And then I have another chart based on whether they are an author of color. So of the 81 books I read this year, 67 books, or 82.72%, were written by authors of color. And then on this next chart, you will see more of a racial breakdown. So you can see that about 50% were written by Asian authors. And again, I am reading a lot of manga, so it's multiple series. Obviously putting 2 and 2 together, that's a lot of Japanese authors in representation, but also just some other contemporary books are listed in there. But in case you're just like, wow, that is a lot, that's some additional context there. The next highest number would be 15 books, or 18.52% being white authors, 13 books, or 16.05% being Black authors, 12 books, or 14.81 being Latina authors, and then I have 1 book of an Indigenous author, and then 1 other book that was by an Indigenous Latino author specifically. So just a few other stats about the book specifically. So I've been tracking whether or not they've been translated or not. Of the books I've read, 30 have been translated, 50 have not been translated. I'm also, again, trying to read more diversely. So I'm tracking how many books I'm reading that are from a Western focus, which is more like the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, countries of that nature. So of that, about 50% of the books I've read have been more of a Western focus, but 33 of the books I've read, or 41.25%, have not been of a Western focus. And then there's about 10% of the books that I've read that have been mixed, where, you know, they're kind of taking place in both a Western country and then a non-Western country. And then the last thing I tracked was whether or not a book was very queer focused. So of all the books that I read, about 25% were queer focused, the other 75% were not. So that is my year thus far in stats. I hope that was riveting for you. So moving on to the actual mid-year freakout. So I have 17 questions in front of me right now. Is that correct? If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my iPad to actually look at what the questions are. So without further ado, let's get started. So question 1, best book you've read so far in 2022. This was hard, so I picked 4, and I guess I can go in chronological order of when I read them. So the first one for me would be The Wicker King by Kate Ingram. You've heard me talk about this. I'm obsessed with this book. This book was so good. It's a quick and easy read. It's really easy to kind of become involved in the story and find yourself in the story. Really interesting conversations around mental health, codependency, found family versus birth family, all of that. Love the friendship in this, love the characters in this, loved how dark and fucked up it was while still being a nice little YA contemporary. So really enjoyed this. The next book for me would be For Brown Girls with Sharp Edges and Tender Hearts. I adored this book. I'm probably gonna read it again before the end of this year because they are coming out with a paperback version. I read this initially from the library, so I want to be able to go ahead and annotate and mark off my physical copy that I now own. It really put me on this trend of wanting to read more nonfiction from other Latin American authors. This book really stuck with me and it helped me feel seen in a way books hadn't for a while. So I really, really enjoyed this. The next book that I would consider one of my favorites of this year, I don't have a physical copy of. I'm going to buy it though, and that is The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. I loved this book. If you watched my Reading Outside for 21 Days book, I was gushing over this book for probably a good 20 minutes, and that's because I had to stop myself. I loved it. I loved how relatable it was. I didn't go to Catholic school, but there was some situations that I still felt like I could very directly relate to our main character Yami's experience, being like one of the few Latinas at a very, very, very predominantly white school, specifically for high school, and kind of navigating that. I also really loved seeing how her relationship with her family progressed over time, how she started to become comfortable in her sexuality and finding her people and just being able to come into herself more as a person. Super beautiful. Really love that book. Want to read again. Will buy it. I have a gift card to buy books and it will be used on that. no hesitation. And the last book I would probably consider a favorite of the year would be You Sound Like a White Girl. I read this and immediately started listening to the audiobook. I have some stuff tabbed. I'm gonna listen again and have this out with me and start tabbing some more. This book was so good. I read this for my sorority's book club, and we actually had the opportunity to have Saraciea J on for a little bit and just kind of hear about her writing experience and her why behind writing this book. And it was such an important and beautiful read for me. Growing up in the US, you don't really hear a lot about the history of Latin America, and only recently I feel like in history they started acknowledging that the colonization of the United States was super violent and basically fucked over a lot of people. I think it was just eye-opening on how really insidious the United States has been and the things they do to continue to silence Latino voices. So really love this. If you are Latin American in any capacity living in the United States specifically, such a good book. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Love this. Probably will read this at least once a year, like speaking that into existence right now. So question 2, best sequel you've read in 2022. I don't read a lot of series. That's never been my thing. I read a lot of contemporary and literary fiction, and oftentimes they are standalones, or I at least gravitate towards standalone novels. I guess I would probably have to say that the best sequels I read were from the manga series Our Dreams at Dusk, because I think that as the books continue, they continue to just get stronger and stronger. I have an entire video talking about Our Dreams at Dusk, so if you want to watch that, I would recommend giving that a watch. Other than that, I don't think it's considered a sequel. They're just like in the same universe, but I really also liked The Weight of the Stars by Kate Ingram, which is in the same universe as The Wicker King. So if you liked The Wicker King, 10 out of 10 would recommend reading that. If you liked The Weight of Our Stars, 10 out of 10 would recommend reading The Wicker King. There's like some science fiction-ness to it, even though it's still very much so a contemporary novel, but it's all very found family vibes. It's very queer. It's very, we are teenagers trying to make the best of our lives. But it was a really great book. I would consider those two the best sequels I've read this year. Question 3, my favorite reread. So I don't often reread books. I'm trying to get better at that. And I think that's another reason why I've been saying like I don't really buy books. And if I'm buying it, it's because I know I absolutely love this book and I would read this again. You might be able to hear my husband. I think he's on the phone with somebody and he's having a great time. Love that for him. But this year I actually did reread a book. It's just in a slightly different format. So can you hear him? So this year I was randomly in the library. Usually when I go to pick up the other books that I've checked out, I'll just go explore specifically like the graphic novel area for like just a quick little pick me up. Let's see how it goes. But I think I mentioned this in my newbie tag, or maybe I didn't, I don't remember. But one of the books that really got me into reading again, specifically in like middle school and high school, was Speak. And I didn't know that they had a graphic novel, so I picked it up and it's very true to the story. I don't know how much was taken out from the physical book and put into the graphic novel, but from memory, it's all still very similar. You're still getting the exact same story, and I actually do like the art in it. I feel like it's very fitting for the story, but this holds up. Like this holds up a lot, and considering it was written in like the 90s, that's shocking. If you enjoyed Speak, I would actually recommend reading the graphic novel as well. It's not visually graphic, so hopefully it's not super triggering, but I really did enjoy rereading this. I'm trying to get more into rereading. Like I've mentioned in my favorite books, I want to read this again and I want to read this again. So hopefully next time I do this, I have more answers and it's not just like, this is the only book I reread, so by default, this was the best. It was also a great book, don't get me wrong. So for question 4, this was actually added by booksanflala. So the question is, what is a genre you've been loving / reading the most of? You know me, I've said this, I'm a contemporary girly, I'm a literary girly, I stick to my roots. So this year, specifically adult contemporary and literary fiction has been stealing my heart. Gave both of these 5 stars, Olga Dies Dreaming and No Land to Light On. Absolutely love them. There's a couple of other ones like Neruda in the Park, really enjoyed. Trying to keep reading more adult contemporary and literary fiction because that's just right up my wheelhouse. I absolutely adore it. It's considered romance, but the writing in You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, absolutely breathtaking. Didn't love the romance, absolutely loved the writing and the story. Probably would have given it a 5 if it wasn't a romance. That's spoiler alerts for another video I'm doing. Other genres I've been enjoying, and I kind of alluded to this when I talked about my favorite books of the year, is specifically nonfiction from a Latin American perspective. These books really defined my reading year. So excited to keep reading more of that because whew, they are perfect, bro. Perfect. So the next question is new release you haven't read but want to. For me, I have a couple books that have been on my radar that I haven't been able to read earlier in the year, but they're definitely on my list. The first one is All My Rage. It's been described as a love story, a tragedy, and an infectious teenage fever dream about what home means when you feel you don't fit in. I believe in the dual timelines, the first one takes place in Pakistan, and it is one of our main characters' parents, and then the present timeline is our main character and his best friend. I can't tell you more about that because I haven't read it, and as you know by now, I don't read the synopses of books really. I just kind of go in blind. So we'll see how it goes. I've heard fantastic things. So I'm actually really, really excited about this. The other book that's on my radar is actually not a genre that I usually read, but I'm still super excited about it. And I've heard literally nothing but good things. And it's Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Again, not a fantasy girly, but we're trying out here. That one is described as a captivating and romantic debut epic fantasy inspired by the legend of the Chinese moon goddess Chang'e, in which a young woman's quest to free her mother pits her against the most powerful immortal in the realm. This one, the cover is gorgeous, so that kind of pulled me in right away. But I also actually watched a movie on Netflix, like an animated movie called Over the Moon, and I absolutely loved it. So when I was looking at it, I was like, this sounds so familiar, and I realized it's the same goddess. So I was like, her story was interesting. I liked learning more about her in the movie, so I'm actually really excited to kind of read a little bit more folklore or books around that character. So I'll let you know what I think. Next question is most anticipated release of the second half of the year. 2 books come to mind. The first one that comes to mind is Crying in a Bathroom, which is a memoir by Erika Sanchez. I absolutely loved. I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, so really excited to read her memoir as well. And as I've been saying, I've been really into reading more nonfiction from a Latin American perspective, so want to hear what she has to say. And then the other one I've heard about recently is Big Chicas Don't Cry. Couldn't tell you what it's about. I just really like the name. That's all I got for you. Hopefully it's great. Next question, biggest disappointment. So for this, I have 2, and I think they're disappointments for very different reasons. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I hated this book. And I think I hated it even more because I wanted to love it so bad. As I've talked about, I don't really like romance books. But what I had learned at that point, and in general, is if I am reading a romance, I'm probably gonna like it more if it is queer or the characters are people of color in some capacity. So I think what I'm saying, take this how you want it. What I've learned is I don't like white romance. So I was like optimistic going into this. I'm like, okay, this is a queer story. Our main character is half Latino. I can't remember what he is. He might be Puerto Rican, he might be Mexican, but I know it's one of those two because if it's white writer, it usually is, but I digress. And then the other main character, Henry, is like a prince, I think, in the UK. Sure. I thought I was really gonna like this book, and I was ready to be proved wrong about multiple things. I kept being told that the audiobook was fantastic, so that like if I read the audiobook, it's so good. Cool. I was told that the romance is really good. Great. Sure. I don't really do audiobooks. I don't really do like romance, but I have enjoyed audiobooks. It's not often that I read them that way, and I've been enjoying specific types of romance. This book taught me multiple things. I don't like listening to fiction audiobooks. It's not for me. 2, I don't like romance about famous people in the public eye. I don't like that shit. I don't like it. And I think specifically because these were about two political figures, I absolutely hated it. I read a review for it and someone was like, this is like Democratic fan fiction. And I was like, that is hilarious because yes, it's true. Like it felt like this, like it felt like it was glamorizing the Democratic Party. And like, I will be very honest in this, I do typically vote Democrat because what the fuck I live in the US and really both options are trash. We're not gonna pretend they're not. Both options are trash. But it was really glamorizing like the Democratic Party in a way that made me uncomfortable. Politicians should not be celebrities to you. Like they should be fixing the fucking country. That is their job. And this book treats them like celebrities and I fucking hated it. But also it was like enemies to lovers and it wasn't enemies to lovers. I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was enemies to lovers, but the reason they were enemies was stupid. And by like the 7th chapter, and there's a lot of chapters that were already like fucking, I was like, no, this book is not good. This book is not good. It's not good. I hated it. I wanted to like it so bad, but I hated it. The second book, I hate even saying that this was one of the most disappointing books of the year, but it was Black Girls Must Be Magic. This book made me realize I didn't actually like the first one. And I think I initially gave the first one like 3.5 or 4 stars. I gave this one 2, and I'll probably adjust my rating for the first one. I think I was just so happy to see women of color talking about like infertility in a book that I was like, yeah, this book is fantastic. It wasn't. Let me say this. I don't know if this is the author's intention, but it felt like it was written for a white audience, which is weird because the book is called Black Girls Must Be Magic, if that makes sense. Like I was maybe 20 pages in and I was just like, I don't like this. Like, I think I blocked out this book from my memory because I was like, this is not good. I really didn't like it. I enjoyed the friendships in the first book. Those basically got completely like obliterated. And this one, you didn't really see it as much. Every chapter was Tabby kind of complaining about the same things, every single thing. Like, she was just complaining about the same shit over and over again. And I was like, this is exhausting. Like, I'm over it. Really didn't like it. Super disappointing. I found out it's a trilogy, so I have to read the third one. Like, maybe this just had like middle book syndrome. I don't know. Maybe the third one will be better. I don't know, but was just really not happy with how this book ended up being, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. On the flip side, we have Biggest Surprise, and for me, this was a no-brainer. It was No Land to Light On. This was the biggest surprise for me because I had never heard of this book, but this is one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read. This was like a very hard 5-star. I read this for a book podcast that my friend had invited me on, and I loved this. Like, the writing in this was gorgeous. You got the physical one. This is on page 229, and this is from one of our main characters' perspectives. And the chapter opens up with, everyone wants America because everything is better here. Everyone always has, and before America, somewhere else, because everything is always better elsewhere. That's why people crouch, freezing in meat trucks, cram onto rubber dinghies they know may capsize in the middle of the ocean. That's why we came, isn't it? Give me you're tired, you're poor. Everyone wants America. And just some context on this. This is written, I want to say it taking place in 2017 during the Muslim ban that Trump put in place. So you have a family that is literally separated and the husband gets deported while his wife is still in the United States, 5 months pregnant with their baby, and trying to navigate that because he can't be let back in. You get insight on what that process looks like because he is technically, I think he has a green card or he's already an American citizen. I can't remember, but he's legally allowed to be here. And just the terrible things that happen while he's in the airport, talking to like immigration and the people in the airport and just how they fuck people over. It's really sad. It's really heart-wrenching, but it's such a good book if you're in the right headspace for it. And so I would 10 out of 10 recommend this. Next question is new favorite author, and that can be either a debut or new to me. I would say, okay, and from anything in this universe, I will read with no hesitation. Next question is new fictional crush. Here's the thing. Of the adult books I've read, there is no one that is crush worthy. Usually all the characters are hella flawed to the point where I'm just like, y'all are messy. You need to get your shit together. So I would never, I don't consider any of them a crush. There's no one that I'm like, you're my favorite character. Like, I loved these books. None of it was because I loved the characters. I disliked most of the characters in all of these books that I read, but the writing was just so good and the storytelling was fantastic. So there's that. The majority of the books I have read are young adult. So in trying to figure out who a crush was, I'm like, if I had to go back like 10, 15 years ago and figure out like who would young Chris be crushing on, I think it would be August from The Wicker King. And I think this tracks because when we learn more about August as an adult in The Way of the Stars, I'm like, yeah, you're hot, bro. Like, it is what it is. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. You're hot. So I'm like, all right, cool. I think younger Chris would probably be in agreement with that. Like, that is where we are. If I had to pick someone, it probably would be Utsumi from Our Dreams at Dusk. He's just so precious. I love him. He's just like such a calm presence. He's so assured of himself. Just such a happy little face. Like, look at him. He's so cute. He's so cute. I love him. So I guess right now I'll call him my fictional crush, even though we don't really have one, and that's okay. Newest favorite character, Yami, hands down. Loved her character. Loved how protective she was of her family, how protective she was of her brother, how she immediately was like, this is a very fucked up reality of what I'm going through. We're gonna make it happen because I'm not gonna let this keep me down. Loved her character. Again, at this point, read this, like read the book. And once you read The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School, let me know so we can talk about it for 4 hours because I need that in my life. Thanks. A book that made you cry. So there's only 2 books that made me cry this year. The first one was A Magic Fish. This book is so cute, so wholesome. Quick context, this book is about a 13-year-old boy who's struggling to come out to his parents while his mom is going through her own shit. She has to travel back to Vietnam because I think her mom is sick. And literally, like, I want to say it was the last page. It was like the last couple pages, but just the way it ends, it's so cute, it's so wholesome, and I love seeing supportive parents, specifically in like queer literature. It's loved it, sobbing, tears everywhere. The other book is You Reached Sam. Did I like this book? Not really. I think I probably gave it like a 3.5 stars. The main character was so fucking annoying. I could not stand her, but the book ends and I was like, everyone says they sobbed during this book. That's so sad. And I don't get it. Like, it's whatever. And then I got to like the last 2 or 3 pages. I sobbed uncontrollably for like 15 minutes to the fact that like I went to my husband and just had to hold him and kept telling him he wasn't allowed to leave. Like, dramatic, yes. But did I cry? Absolutely. So books that made me cry, those 2. A book that made me happy. So I don't read a lot of happy books. I just don't. I like reading sad shit because I read a lot of books rooted in real life, and real life is sad a lot of the time. But a book I read that was just absolutely bliss the entire time, I Will How to Ride. Absolutely love this. I have to return this back to the library, but I'll return it at some point. Love this book. So cute, so wholesome. A lot of character development still happens, but overall the tone is just always like, it's angsty as fuck. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but it's happy. It's teenagers being teenagers. It's first love. It's finding friends. It's being true to yourself. Like, really good, really wholesome. Absolutely adored it. The most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year. I love this book. I think the cover art is beautiful, but also I think the entire book and how the author used like the physical pages as another way to tell the story. Like, it's not a graphic novel. There's some like graphics in it, but it's not a graphic novel, but still using the pages at your disposal to really strengthen the storytelling, I think was a beautiful touch, and I'm obsessed with that. Like, I think that's part of the reason I love this book so much, because it is just such a clear lead-in to our character's mental deterioration, and I loved it. The other 2 books I have from the library, but I think these are 2 of the most beautiful covers I've seen on books in a really long time. First one is Afterparties Stories, While Tongues Can't Be Tamed. Another just really beautiful cover. What books do I need to read by the end of the year? Literally everything I have checked out from the library would be great. would be fantastic. I would love that for me. But on a serious note, I also really want to read Eliza and Her Monsters. I only bought 3 books that I hadn't read before reading them this year, and this is the 3rd one. A love letter to fandom, friendship, and the stories that shape us. I love books about friendship. I hate romance, but I love books about friendship. I am a fandom girl. No, I will not tell you what fandoms I'm part of or what fandoms I have been part of, because holy fuck is that embarrassing, but I am a fandom girly. I'm so really excited to read this. Ooh, okay, so last 2 are a little bit like not book related and more personal related, I guess. Favorite video or post you've done so far this year? So far, my favorite video would be the one I did for Wash Day Diaries. That is a graphic novel that came out July, and I got that through NetGalley. Absolutely loved it. So I read the book as I was doing like my own hair wash routine and kind of practicing that self-love and self-care that we're seeing in the book. Absolutely love that book also. If you haven't read it, 10 out of 10 would recommend. It is a quick read. It's a graphic novel, but it's all colorized. Each of the characters have their own color and their own chapters in the story. Like, they have such a beautiful friendship. I love that book. My favorite post, I recently archived a lot of the book stuff that I had on my Instagram, just because a lot of the books that were on there, I'm like, I don't like these books, and the posts weren't my favorite, so I've archived a lot of stuff. But I would say that one of my favorite posts was a one I did about the gifts that my students had got me. I work in student affairs and higher education, and a lot of my students just got me gifts, and they were all book related. So I'm just like, it showed me how much I talk to them about book things and talk about books in general, and how much of a nerd I am, but that's fine. They were all really thoughtful. Like, one of the gifts were this really cute mug I got, and like gift cards, a puzzle I did, just random things. I really appreciated that. And receiving gifts is not very high on my love languages, but sentimental gifts that show that you like thought of me, or that you saw something, you're like, oh, this is something that she would enjoy. It tugged at my dark little heart, and I really enjoyed them, and I use them all the time. I got these books with one of the gift cards that my students got me. Plus, they look so pretty together. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Anyway, I got these books with the gift card that 2 of my students got me, and plan on purchasing a couple other books with another gift card that my students got me. So really appreciate them. If any of y'all are watching this, just know I appreciate you. That's my favorite video, my favorite post, respectively. And then last question, favorite book community members. Really been enjoying Jessica Nicole Dickerson, Jess Owens. I love all of her like book community videos. I'm not on book Twitter. I don't even care. They're just so entertaining. Love them. I know she's not posting anything right now. She's on a bit of a hiatus, but I really enjoy Tiana T's channel. If you know As Sold by Kenya, she just came out with a book channel, so really enjoying Lily Reads. I'll also watch some Tatiana Vaught, Sunny Kim, and then you probably hear these a lot, but I also really enjoy booksanflala, Jack Edwards, with Cindy, Chanel Time, and Mina Reads. Love their content, love their personalities. A lot of the books they read are not genres that I would even gravitate towards, but I just love their energy on camera, so I will watch anything that they put out. That kind of counts for all the other creators that I mentioned as well. But that is my mid-year freakout tag. Are we stressed? No. Do I want to edit this? Not really. So thank you so much for watching. I've answered a ton of questions, and now I want to ask all of you a question. So, hey y'all, what do you think about this? Something that has been plaguing my brain since I heard this, and I need to talk about it with people because I don't see anyone talking about this. And anytime I bring it up to someone, they look at me like I'm crazy. But I'm not. This is a good question, and it needs answers. Need honest opinions, need thoughts. The hit song, Trademark USA by Baby Keem. So in the song, when the beat drops, we hear the line, "Bitch don't think shit's sweet." On the same Baby Keem in 48 states. Which begs the question, so which states is he not Baby Keem? So when I hear that line, the question that comes to mind is, which 2 states is he not Baby Keem in? Like, is he only Baby Keem in the continental United States? Which means in Hawaii and Alaska, he's either not known as Baby Keem, or he's just a different variation of Baby Keem, or because like he was born in Cali and grew up in Vegas, he's like just known as Hakeem there because it's like a more personal thing. Or again, does he transform into a very different Baby Keem? Are there just some states he doesn't fuck with like that? So he's like, nah, y'all get a different Baby Keem, or you just don't get Baby Keem at all. Like, what does it mean? What does it mean? And then that begs the question, what is he known in DC and Puerto Rico, right? Because like DC is not a state, Puerto Rico is not a state, but they're still the United States. So is he the same Baby Keem there, but like he just doesn't say it in the line because he's only talking about states right now? Or again, do they get a very different Baby Keem? What do y'all think? I need to know. I wonder, inquiring minds want to know. Please let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This has been the mid-year freakout tag with some extra little sides of additional data. So hope that was all interesting to you all. If you have any other video ideas you'd like to see me do, leave those in the comments below. Let me know, DM me on Instagram, I don't care. Hope you all enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. When that is, who knows? I don't. Bye.
Let's run away.